this, how do I create my life? How do I escape these patterns? And instead of just kind of looking at the cognitive level, I'm going to just believe differently or think differently, we're getting a deeper access to our own self that is so profound. It's so symbolic. It's a much more direct experience of our own journey. Hello, welcome to another episode of Soul Sessions with Creative Mind. I'm Deborah Burnt Maldonado. I'm here with Dr. Rob Maldonado. How are you today, Rob?
Very, very good. Thank you.
I'm excited about this topic today. We're going to talk about determinism versus free will and how dreams play a part in that.
Yeah.
But before we begin, I would like to remind you to click the button here if you're watching us on YouTube to subscribe to our channel. All right.
So is everything determined? Is everything written in the stars or in the tea leaves?
Yeah.
Or do we have free will?
That is the biggest question. And I often had that debate a lot when I first started becoming a coach. People would say, but you really can't change. You think you have free will, but you really don't.
And what does this have to do with dreams?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Well, I want to start off with the definitions of determinism and free will, and then you're going to talk about like its history and psychology and how it's approached. So determinism is the idea that all events, including moral choices, are completely determined by previously existing causes. It's closely linked to the notion of causality, suggesting that everything has a cause and effect, and therefore our choices and actions are predetermined by a chain of prior occurrences. This view implies that given the state of the universe at a particular time, there's only one possible future. Now, free will, on the other hand, is a concept that we have the ability to choose differently in any situation. It suggests that individuals have the power to make choices that are not predetermined by the past, not by past events or natural laws. This perspective aligns with the sense of agency and responsibility that many people feel regarding their actions. So there's this kind of like, I think a lot of people believe they have free will, but there's this determination. And so how do they come into play, Rob?
Yeah. So if you think about Freud's philosophy, he was deterministic in a sense because what he was saying is based on your past experiences and kind of what you've held in your unconscious mind. If we knew everything about you, we could predict your future actions, decisions, morality, etc.
Is that where they say the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior?
Part of
that
it, yeah.
That kind of quote, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole idea is that if we had enough information, we could know everything about what you're going to do. In essence, prediction. Because that's part of what science is. It wants to predict the behavior of things, the cause and the effect.
It makes us feel kind of safe in a way that we have this like kind of safety net, this determinism in a way. Like it's almost like it's fate, it will happen when it happens, right?
Well, yeah. We could say that systems like astrology, not always, we know astrologers that are more subtle and incorporate different ideas, but in general, right, just the idea that depending on what time you were born and your sign and all that, that we can predict your future based on where the stars are and the alignment of the stars. But if we think about Jung's work, and especially individuation, he's talking about free will. But it's not guaranteed, and it's not something that's apparent or given to you at the start. You have to go through the process of individuation to acquire free will.
So really, until we undergo shadow work and the individuation process, which is basically early part of life, is we are basically operating from cause and effect, the people around us shaped by the world. And then, we can, everyone can notice in their life how many of their life keeps playing out the same way. Same amount of money comes in, same struggles with money, same struggles with relationships, parent relationships, friendships. Like, this keeps happening to me. You hear that like phrase from people like, I don't know why this keeps happening to me. But, they're caught up in their pattern. And that would be a deterministic type of existence. Now, people who are undergo individuation and they start, understanding what the drivers are and consciously that are driving that determinism, when you make that conscious, as Carl Jung famously said, then you can change your fate. Until you make that unconscious conscious, you will think of it as fate. And that's really the key. And I think that it's either the camps of determinism or free will. It's actually both, depending on what stage of development you're in.
Yeah, and that's usually the case, right? Life is not always that black and white, yes and no, or good and bad. It's always those gray areas, and this is one of those cases. It's not either or. It's simply that, depending on your state of mind, your personal development status, your ability to really take charge of your own life and your mind, then you can develop free will. And it is something that comes into being through the individuation process. And what we've been talking about is how dreams can guide, instruct that individuation process. In other words, how the unconscious mind produces dreams that give us direct messages about what is the nature of our work as we go through individuation.
Well, and I think the big thing for me when I discovered Jungian psychology is this idea that cognitively we can try to rationalize and self-examine our thoughts and our feelings and create goals and like understand our past and, oh yeah, my parents were this way, and like almost understanding our patterns in a way, but it doesn't change it. And the insight is not transformation. And we need to go deeper into the unconscious to see what we can't see. What are the things that we are making our assumptions of life on and our limits of our life based on? And that's irrational. And if we don't know what that is, we can't change it. So you can't change what you're not aware of. And dreams are amazing because they will, every night they're giving you information that you can't access on a conscious level.
Yeah, and at the heart of this ability to direct your life, meaning to have free will, is the anima and animus. Now, we want to focus on the animus just to simplify it, because the words are so close that it gets confusing when we talk about them both at the same time. So the animus, and Jung conceived it primarily as kind of the unconscious element in women, that as a woman undergoes individuation after integration of the shadow, after she kind of realizes that I'm not the persona, there's more to me. The next level of integration has to do with integrating the animus.
And I think that's a really important thing you just said, because so many people stop at shadow work. They think shadow work is the key. And once I do my shadow work, I'm going to be fine. But that's just getting you back to a little bit of more self-awareness. But what do you do with that self-awareness? That's where the anima animus come in, where you're able to make huge changes and using, I see them as your spiritual power, or your emotional power for men, is this like deep soulful power that you aren't able to access until you do the shadow work. And then after that, this greater part of you comes through.
Yeah, Jung talks about it as an evolution. So there are basic physical kind of social elements to it, but as you proceed further in developing that relationship with the animus, that there are more spiritual, psychological, emotional elements to it.
Yeah, I would say that the anima or animus, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's kind of the same thing. There's more things that are more related to survival and social, and then you go to higher places. So, when we used to do our Engaged in Your program, we worked a lot with the social part of the anima, the animus and the anima. But there's another layer to that, and that's creating and self-realization and all those wonderful things. And then really kind of living your mission, living your purpose in a bigger way.
Yeah, and a lot of people get hung up on the gender issues with the anima animus, but it's simply that Jung had to frame it in that context to build the structure of the theory. Yeah, you can't really have a good theory if you can't account for human behavior. So human behavior at the social level is all about relationships, and so the anima animus plays a big part in that. Now, the animus for a woman, he thought at that basic social level, it's the it's the balancing out of the feminine principle that's already there. So nurturance, emotionality, intuition is already there. He says the animus, what that gives a woman, that assertiveness, the use of logic, the ability to assert and take control of things.
Like their volition. They have more power over their will and to will themselves versus be passive. It's more an active force. And how can women be a more active force in their life toward what they want to create versus waiting for the right time or waiting for people to just cooperate with them? It's like that kind of ability where a lot of women think, oh, that's aggressive. Or that's asking for too much or being pushy. It's that kind of power that we have that is this, I hate to say masculine power because people get confused by it, but spiritual power that we need to effectuate change in the world, to live our purpose, to be a powerful partner with someone romantically. If you don't have that animus, you're going to just project it all onto your partner and they're going to be your source of power versus you have it within yourself. And I think if you think about the ego and the shadow, like the persona shadow, that's really kind of working on that, kind of coming to terms with your past. And the Anima Animus work is about creating your future.
Yeah, so the animus, beyond the kind of the social aspect of it, right? Balancing out the nurturance and the assertiveness, then it goes into creativity.
Oh, yeah.
And creativity, of course, has to do more with tapping into the deeper aspects of the psyche, the collective unconscious, as he says, and tapping into those symbols and archetypes that arise from the collective unconscious that are then able to be introduced into society and culture that then transform that culture.
So would you say the more individuated you are from shadow work, the more pure relationship you have with the animus? It kind of like you have to do that work first, or else you just project your ego onto it?
Yeah, pretty much so. That's why
because it's such a power, then you can be, if the ego then idolizes the animus or anima, and then you get kind of, it's not a healthy, like equal relationship, basically.
Yeah, and there are different interpretations of Jung's process of individuation, but we've been working for about 10 years or more, taking people through the individuation process. And what we've learned is it's better to focus initially on the persona shadow work and integrate those elements before going on into the deeper aspects of the collective unconscious, because often the ego always wants to get away from shadow work.
It wants to jump ahead.
It wants to jump ahead. It wants to bypass all that difficult stuff and just go to the fun stuff. And this is really the fun stuff in the sense that it allows you to create, right? This is the birth of free will, meaning it's your ability to determine who you are and how your life is going to play out. Now, that's a powerful mental state of mind.
Well, wouldn't you say that if you just skip into archetypal work, let's say, I'm just going to work with the archetypes, I'm not going to do the shadow work. What tends to happen is you become very the psyche, you process it very intellectualized, and it becomes very high concept. And when you do shadow work, you're actually integrating all those emotions that you've been pushed away. And you want that emotional energy for those archetypes. You don't want to just think of it as a logical, kind of rational way to look at these archetypes and how they show up, and they become more personality traits versus really this kind of psychic force that's showing up. Wouldn't you say that?
Well, I mean, I defer to you because you had to integrate your animus, whereas my work was to integrate the anima.
Yeah.
But that sounds right along the kind of Jung's way of thinking about it.
Well, when I first started doing animus work, I wasn't sure. I didn't know I was doing it, but it was really just visualizing my ideal partner. And I would do this active imagination with this person. I never saw his face, but imagined what it would be like to have someone love me, in this beautiful way. And then when I worked on my shadow, basically, which I didn't know I was doing at the time, I was actually working on this shadow work and the projections and retrieving them all, working on these emotions through building my first coach, starting out as a coach and being an entrepreneur. If you ever want to accelerate your individuation process, become an entrepreneur, because it really stretches your comfort zone and you can work with it. But after that, I found that once the relationship part was taken care of, I was kind of like complete with that. not complete fully, but you know what I'm saying? Like you're not like struggling anymore with the same pattern. I was ready for a bigger option. So it becomes less of a social fitting in and, drive to be in a relationship. But now it's like, as a woman, where is my power and how can I exert my power in the world to live my purpose? And it's like almost like we talked about, the animus matures. At first, it's this kind of sexual, like, physical reaction. And then we evolve into the social. And then we go into these higher visions of purpose with it.
Yeah, purpose. I like that, because if you think about shadow work, it dissuades you of the illusion that you are the persona. Mm-hmm. But then what? Mm-hmm. In other words, then who are you and how are you going to act in the world if you're not acting to sustain and uphold this persona, this mask, right? This role that you've been playing. The animus for a woman serves that purpose, that it gives you then your higher purpose, your direction in life, your ability, not only your ability to drive your life and direct it, but also to instruct you in what is it that you're meant to be building.
It's like intuition in a way, like accessing your own inner wisdom. And I see, for me, my animus is my inner wisdom. It's not some man in my psyche that's separate from me, but it's like that my masculine energy that doesn't fit into, my persona, which is a woman, but having that, like, being able to exert my will, be powerful, feel powerful in the world. It's just and we do need both. And when we say masculine and feminine, it's not a gender thing, but it's more the creative, nurturing, allowing force versus the active force, the assertive force, the will, the drive, and they work together. Just like a baby's born from two people, it's the two energies moving together, right?
Yeah, a lot of people use the idea of the yin and yang to help them understand it in a more creative way.
And in yoga philosophy, the Shakti, Shiva
and Shakti.
Yeah.
The consciousness and material world.
So now that we have that straightened out, we want free will, we want to work with the animus. You have a dream that when someone submitted that is clearly an animus dream. We wanted to share parts of it with you and show you really the power of this concept.
Yeah, so this series, we're focusing on dreams. And in this instance, of course, we want to see how the animus appears in dreams to guide the individual. And this is someone who is undergoing individuation. She's already done the major heavy lifting of integrating her shadow, and now is starting to receive these dreams, pointing her in the direction of her spirituality, her purpose, her higher purpose. So she's at the kind of a house party. There's family around, there's kids, and then while they're enjoying the festivities, a group of men appear, maybe on motorcycles. There was a feeling of wildness coming from them, and people noticed them. I went inside. I find myself in a room with people I know. Everyone is friendly and having conversations. But then the main figure comes in, right?
From the motorcycle guy?
Yeah, the leader of the gang, kind of. He strides in purposefully, and he comes straight towards me and stops a couple of feet away.
I like this. The energy of his approach takes my breath away. So that power, like, this person has power.
That's right. He is dark and his hair is disheveled. He is a bit dirty and his clothes are worn. Middle-aged. He looks as though he has just emerged from a forest or wilderness or jungle. There's an intensity in his look, and he takes me in. I know he is there for me. I feel his desire and his need. I know he is dangerous, wild, and there is some lingering madness surrounding him. I'm not afraid for myself. I was unsure of him, but not afraid. So here, the unconscious is kind of presenting what the relationship this woman has with her animus at this point.
And the house and is like kind of her comfort zone, her social circle, her determined the future, like this kind of like set comfort, right? The people.
Yeah, the home always, not always, but let's say in this dream represents her comfort zone, like you say, her way of being up to this point. Now there's a new element coming in. Now that she's kind of gained some comfort with working with the unconscious, this new wild element is coming in. And now the wildness here, it has a lot of layers of meaning, but in general, we see it as indicating that there's been no contact, right? If somebody has been living in
kind
the
of like
wilderness,
Tarzan, like growing up in the jungle, and he comes into society, and he's
it's something from the wilderness, from the deeper unconscious mind. So now it's emerging and it's coming in, and it's powerful, right? She senses that there's danger here, right? There's danger, meaning it's unknown to me. Something new has come into my life. What does Jung say? Something has awakened in me.
Something has to come alive in me that needs my attention.
That's right. That's right. So the dream goes on, and she says, "I'm nervous, wondering if he will cause a scene in front of my family." And then a few other things happen, and the rest of the gang comes into the house and disturbs the party, and they have to flee. So she has to run out the back window or escape through the back window. But as she's kind of exiting the house through the window, the man is there. In other words, the wild man is there on the other side, helping her.
Kind of moving away from their ego conditioning into this new unknown, right?
Yes, but here he looks more human. So his appearance is already changing, meaning he's friendlier, he's more approachable. And he's playing the role, of course, of a helper, a guide. He gives a nod and points in the direction of my escape. In other words, he's pointing the way to the new house or the new place that she has to go.
And wouldn't you say a typical dream with the anima or animus, they sometimes evolve in the dream itself. They started in one state or one symbol, and they would evolve, and it's kind of showing you the before and after of how you need to evolve your relationship with the anima animus. Or sometimes it's a number of dreams that you see the evolution.
Absolutely. It usually plays out as themes, a series of dreams that might have the similar theme of this wild person or this wild man, and how the relationship shifts as she becomes conscious of this new element arising in the psyche. So this is the aspect of dream work where Jung talks about the integration of the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. Now, remember, this is someone undergoing individuation. In other words, she's studying, reading, contemplating, working at a much different level than simply believing she's the persona. She's starting to realize, everything I'm perceiving in my waking life is teaching me, right? It's telling me something about who I am. That's a very different state of mind than the ordinary person has. So the unconscious now starts to present dreams that are guiding her in a much deeper way. Because now the task becomes about creating something new in life, not simply balancing the ego persona, but now about directing her in which way to go. And this dream, you see it very clearly that if she's meant to escape her old family system, meaning that's the shadow work that she did, she's exiting that aspect of her life. In which direction is she meant to go? And the animus is there to direct her and help her.
And then that home and the family just represents that our conditioning, because our family has a lot to do with our determinism. And if we don't become conscious of it, and it's like, and going through the window too, isn't that spiritual? Like windows represent the spirit looking outside. And then also the stepping outside of this frame is like going to the unlimited parts of yourself. So many layers. And the thing is, it's so cool because we all learn, and all of us who've studied personal development, we all want that magic. We all want this, how do I create my life? How do I escape these patterns? And instead of just kind of looking at the cognitive level, I'm going to just believe differently or think differently, we're getting a deeper access to our own self that is so profound. It's so symbolic. It's a much more direct experience of our own journey. And more creative. I mean, this is so much better than thinking, I'm good enough, I can make it, or even being motivated to keep working through, resistance. You want to understand, well, why is there so much resistance?
Yeah.
And then instead of having the ego create from that, pushing through the mud, you can have the access to the spiritual power that you can use versus your ego trying to create your life. It's a different element of power that you have to create your life.
Yeah, and the way we see symbols that come through dreams is that they do have a power in themselves. In other words, just the appearance of that dream and that symbol of the animus in the dream will begin to shift the individual psyche. Mm-hmm. But remember, she's also participating in a conscious way. In other words, she's studying her own developmental process of individuation, which means now that the conscious mind can participate with the unconscious content that's coming into awareness and direct it in a much more powerful way.
Now, what would you say now? Okay, so we have talked about predeterminism and free will. We talked about that in order to get unlocked from our predetermined future, from our conditioning, that we need to individuate. And how we individuate is through dreams. So what would be the next step for someone who's done their shadow work and now had a dream like this? What would be something like from a practical place where what she can do with this dream?
Yeah, so as a coach, she's building a practice. Mm-hmm. Can she use the power, the spiritual power that comes through the animus to build her practice? Absolutely, right? She needs that assertiveness, that use of logic, that spiritual presence.
Even the messiness, like he's kind of wild and messy. And when you start your own business, it is not, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. It's like the jungle. You've never traversed through this jungle before. You have the hatchet and you got to find your way and you don't know what's going to show up. And it's like you need some kind of connection to something within you that's much deeper, because if you look at your external and you're just looking at outside of yourself for your senses to navigate, you're going to get lost in the jungle. And so this is kind of like almost like your inner beacon that will help you navigate this wild, unruly place of stepping outside your comfort zone, whether it's starting a business or being in a new relationship, which can cause lots of upheaval and wildness and wild feelings. And how do we navigate that and how do we balance that?
Well, yeah, because we have to remember that wildness now is tempered by the logical, conscious element already. That's empathy, nurturance. She's a coach, right? She's been practicing and learning how to listen, how to be empathic, all these things. So now the mixture of the two, the combination, the integration of the two, that's where the power comes from. That it's not only one or the other, it's the integration, meaning she will be a more complete individual in that regard.
Versus trying to continue to create her life, or even as a coach, create her coaching business through ego, through making it like about, I need everything to be perfect before I start. A lot of people forget, like they get discouraged. And where do you go when you're discouraged? You have to find that resource within to continue. And it's a beautiful process. And we do need both logic and creativity when we create anything. We can't create fully. If we just use logic, it'll only get you so far. And if you just use creativity, you will get lost. You'll have fun, but you're going in a circle. So you want to have both to really create something amazing, your masterpiece, the canvas and the paint.
Yeah, and ultimately it's the balance of the anima, the soulfulness of the individual who in her, right, the soulfulness is already in her persona. She's a beautiful person that wants to help others. The animus now brings in that powerful spiritual force that in combination, the divine marriage, as Blake says, of the conscious and the unconscious,
And usually
of heaven
women
and hell.
Usually women or anyone who's like in that helping field, they feel that hesitancy to exert their power because they want to be nice and they want to be helpful, and sometimes they don't keep boundaries, or they're afraid to look too assertive, like even asking and pitching their services, charging money, all those things that help them have a successful business. The animus can help balance out that desire to help others, that's soulful, meaningful, as well as the logic of, but you need a business, you got to make money, you got to do certain things, you got to put yourself out there, that balance of both. And I think a lot of people that are in the helping industry, they love to teach and nurture, but they have such resistance to integrating that will in the world.
The divine marriage of the conscious mind and the unconscious now yields this new self, a new sense of self, right? A more complete sense of self, which is the third stage of individuation, that movement towards the self, as some people call it, the higher self, the true self. But Jung just says it's the self, meaning it's who you really are, not just your persona, not just the mask, the role that you're playing in society, but your essence, your beingness.
Like your self-concept growing up is that you're this little persona, and then when you start working with the shadow, your self-concept gets shaken up a bit, and you're like, nah, that's not who I think I am anymore. And you're kind of like discovering like who you are, what your individual life means, what your purpose is, what your role is in life, or relationships, and all those things. And then as we evolve to Anima and Animus is to do bigger things, live our purpose. And then you're saying the last stage is our self-concept, is so far away from the ego, and the ego's still there. You can't get rid of the ego, but your ego has no power anymore to really drive your life in this higher concept of yourself, that your true nature is the one that basically drives your life. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's a gradation. It's not like, okay, you're done with step one. It's like an evolution as you go through, and a gradual process of growth.
So next time we'll talk about the process of individuation and the part that dreams play on the path to self-realization.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, Rob, I love talking about Anima and Animus. I hope you did too. But before we go, I do want to remind you to subscribe to our channel here. Click the button if you're watching us on YouTube, and not miss the episode next week where we kind of go for the big picture of how dreams work in shadow work, in Anima and Animus work, and the work with the self, the big self.
See you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.